In the early morning hours of May 14th, 1864, General Grant shifted two of his corps, the 5th and 6th Corps, away from the Muleshoe salient where they had been engaged 2 days previously. Grant's idea was that the 5th Corps would come down the Courthouse Road towards the very weakly held right wing of the Confederate Army. The Confederates were entrenched down till about the vicinity just below the intersection with Massaponax Church Road. This was the extreme right wing of the Confederates. The 6th Corps would swing around, crossing the Nye River with the intent of coming up the Massaponax Church Road pre-dawn and simultaneously hit the right wing of the Confederate Army. Unfortunately, weather conspired against them. It had rained very heavily for several days, and so by the appointed hour, the advancing troops were being bogged down in the mud. So by sunrise, 5th Corps troops coming up towards the vicinity of what is known as Whig Hill, which would become General Warren's headquarters, had probably only enough to form a very weakly formed skirmish line. Grant would call off this assault, which, had it succeeded, would have probably rolled up the right wing of the Confederate Army, perhaps ending the war. Once assembled at Whig Hill, General Meade, commanding the Army of the Potomac, met with General Warren. They were able to see from the Beverly farm, the owners of Whig Hill, that off in the distance to the southeast, on a rise of ground, the Myer farm was occupied by dismounted Confederate cavalry and a battery of artillery. They had been in place for several days, observing as best they could movements of the Federals. Meade did not like the fact that they were able to observe the Federal advance, and he ordered Warren to have them driven off. Two small regiments, the 91st Pennsylvania and 140th New York, made their way across the ground, entering a woods just past a stream coming off of the Nye River. This area is noted in a period document as being like a swamp. They came to the edge of the woods where in 1864 the Myer farm was a clearing. They advanced in skirmish formation, 300 or 400 men strong, very small regiments at that time, having taken heavy casualties during the opening salvos of the Wilderness fight. But it was enough, after a brief firefight around the Myer house and outbuildings, that the Confederates withdrew, taking McGregor's battery off with them. To the south of the property, along a farm lane that connected to the Massaponax Church Road, there were two sections of trees. Later in the afternoon, General Meade came to the Myer house and was in a meeting with Colonel Emory Upton and General Wright of the 6th Corps. Confederates had built a trench line surrounding the top of the hill, here marked in blue. holding the front very close to the Myer house and a line of former slave cabins. The 121st New York held this front position. The 5th Maine anchored the Federal left. 95th and 96th Pennsylvania held on to the right. Upton had requested some additional troops to secure the hill. He was given the 2nd and 10th New Jersey. In the afternoon, around 4 p.m., observers on top of the Myer house indicated that they had seen Confederate activity to the south. Members of the 96th Pennsylvania entered the wood with additional support of members of the 2nd New Jersey, who positioned themselves straddling the farm lane. The 96th Pennsylvania encountered a Confederate major who promised that he was the only one there. Shortly thereafter, Confederates in full force, Wright's Georgians and Harris's Mississippians, began to descend upon Upton's command, vastly outnumbering them, attempting to envelop them. Confederate artillery, McGregor's battery, appeared on the edge of the woods, positioned about where Gunnery Hill Road is today. The Gunnery Hill Road you see marked on this Google Earth map is incorrect. That is falsely placed. This is Gunnery Hill Road. McGregor's battery opened up on the Myer house with General Meade still inside. The general was able to get out safely, led by Nathaniel Mickler, who was a topographical engineer. He had done some reconnaissance of the ground earlier, and he was able to lead the general to safety to a fording spot along the Nye River. Seemingly out of nowhere, some Confederate cavalry appeared. A Confederate major went grabbing for General Meade. In the tussle, Meade lost his glasses, but was able to escape, the Confederate major being captured. Meade was infuriated. Confederates had forced Upton's command off the hill with great casualties. The New Jersey regiments were nearly all captured. So as the sun was going down, Meade insisted that General Warren, still headquartered at Wig Hill, would send his entire Ayers Brigade, which consisted of the same regiments that went in the morning, plus the U.S. regulars. Asked them to push the Confederates off. To precede that, Union artillery from Wig Hill and the Anderson Farm, which is now a giant quarry, began to shell the property. Confederates quickly withdrew, leaving the hill to the advancing Federal infantry. Unfortunately, some of Ayers' brigade, as they advanced up the hill, were subject to some friendly fire casualties due to the artillery on the Anderson Plateau not getting the ceasefire word.